took on the Union Navy. It destroyed 2 warships, rammed another, caused panic in Washington that this warship was going to come up and destroy New York, Boston, Washington. It also caused McClellan's attack on Richmond in the spring of 1862 to fail. It caused President Lincoln a lot of anxiety because he had been pressing McClellan to take the fight to Richmond. So now we have this Confederate ship, the Virginia. Now what has that got to do with this house? A lot. The Confederate ship Virginia was in fact the Merrimack, and the steam engine for the Merrimack was built at the foundry here. And the Merrimack was scuttled at the beginning of the Civil War, was raised by the Confederates, was outfitted as an armor-plated ship with a gun platform, an armored gun platform on the top with 12 guns. And basically, this was the end of the wooden ship, frigate, sailing ship era in warfare. From now on, the world has changed. And the Foundry and the Kembles were part of that. And then what happened because of McClellan's failure, President Lincoln became really fed up with how McClellan was pursuing the war. So he came up on June 23rd, 1862. He came to West Point, stayed overnight, and then he talked the next morning with General Winfield Scott. He talked for 5 hours with General Scott. He then came across the river, landed at Foundry Dock here, and came up to meet with William Kemble and his family. And my God, here he is again. President Lincoln.
Yeah.
So, great to see you.
Thank you for this lovely introduction. Permit me to first thank our hosts here for bringing us all together. I'm humbled by the hospitality I've already received, so perhaps give them a little round of applause here for inviting us all for this august occasion. I came through here a few years ago en route to my inauguration. Pausing at Peekskill, there was such a clamor from the local residents here in the Highlands. Why, I wanted to sleep. Oh, I prayed, let me sleep. But no, they wouldn't let that happen. I had to step out and acknowledge. And what acknowledgement I got was this. I found that the applause, the clamoring, was sustaining. And it lifted my spirits, such to the point where I realized I could not govern this great nation without the sustaining sensation that was present here in the Hudson Islands en route to my inauguration. Now, as you learned, I did indeed come to meet with old Fuss and Feathers across the river, General Winfield Scott. Yea, he wanted to consult with me about the efficacy of the Virginia or the Merrimack. And we talked and listened, and he said, just have the troops move down. I said, well, you don't understand. McClellan has a case of the slows. But I did heed his advice. He presented himself as a distinguished figure, though quite a figure is he, taller than am I, but a good 100 pounds heavier, perched upon a horse I understand they are to hoist him upon. But I was not here to make or unmake any generals. Truly what I wanted was a respite from the clamoring that was not sustaining me down in Washington and environs. And thus I sought out Sloan with his railroad and Governor Kemble here with his foundry. to provide, again, a way in which I could check and see how things were proceeding, but also, again, to find something that would lift my spirits. And here in these highlands I found just that. Why, first, when I went to meet with old Fuss and Feathers, I preferred a finer feathered creature. That is, the young officers' wives. They were quite in the mood, it seemed, to engage with me in, how shall I characterize it, flirtatious conversation. Imagine a gentleman like me in his 50s, charming all these young ladies, but indeed, I was most charmed by all of them. And then Governor Kemble brought out all the guns smoking. Why, we went not too far from where we're standing, and he said, "Oh, here we'll first demonstrate the 20-pounder, then the 50-pounder, then the 100-pounder," and boom, they would fire across over into some edifice over here, I believe, called the Crow Nest. And after a significant number of rounds, why, Kemble turned unto me and he says, "Oh, now, Mr. President, how would you like to see the 200-pounder? Well, I had to say to him, this less than 200-pounder is hungry. Please bring me across. I'm sure the 200-pounder will be sufficient." And then as we crossed over here, I gazed at a tunnel bored into one of the many hills here in the highlands, and I elbowed Sloane and said, "Oh, is that your rat hole?" And he looked a little bit indignant, but could see from the twinkle in my eye meant it only as a bit of praise for building this railroad here that we now are enjoying a train passing by. Yes, thank you much. Now, I find these to be trying times, and yet having the opportunity to stand before this august crowd gathered here in this sultry afternoon, hosted by this lovely couple, it not only lifts my spirits, but gives me hope that as we forge on ahead, we will sustain each other and will sustain the great heritage presented unto us here in these highlands as truly a gift. And my friends, I must say, it is a gift for me to be standing here amongst all of you, and I thank you kindly for your time and attention. So please return to the festivities after a little round of applause. Thank you very much all.